sunshine down in Manchester, but we're in the shade, because in Ukraine it's raining down cruise missiles. Innocent people, more than 3,000 have been killed in 24 years of war. 24 days, it feels like 24 years. For me personally, and for a lot of others. 3,000 innocent victims. Maternity hospital. Killing still unborn children. Children that have just been born. Mothers who are going to give birth. Killed. This is the modern world we still live in. And for some reason, the West is accepting this. We need to close the skies over Ukraine. We need a shield over Ukraine. Innocent lives are being lost. If you watch the news, and we are tuned in 24/7 to the Ukrainian news, we see pictures of bombs exploding and a man just trying to jump over a barrier and his whole family gets wiped out behind him. His wife, his 2 children and their pet dog. Is the blood of Ukrainians so cheap that you're willing to sacrifice us because you're too scared of that lunatic that's called Putin? What is wrong with the West that they won't commit? You think World War III has not started? Think again. They bombed Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. This is 6 times the size of Chernobyl. Now if that had got up, do you think most of Europe would be here now? Please think. Platitudes and shouting are great, but we need to put pressure on the West, on NATO, to shield Ukraine. We need the skies clearing. We're on our 24th day. He expected to take Kyiv in 3. He's asked China for military aid, this so-called superpower, run by a raving lunatic. But nobody will stand up to him. The Ukrainian nation is standing up to him. And we're paying the price with innocent lives of women, children, men in wheelchairs being shot. And yet the West accepts this because it's not their electorate. Are they scared of losing their seats more than they are scared of Putin? What is wrong with the West? Please explain why our lives don't matter. Please, someone explain. I hope more of you will attend, because, yeah, we were knocked off the front page of the news yesterday because P&O had sacked 800. But in the meantime, innocents are dying. And will continue to die until the West does more. Putin has started ethnic cleansing. If you don't believe it, why would you bomb a maternity hospital? Why would you bomb an opera house where 1,000 children were in shelter? Because he doesn't want us to exist.
My parents came here after the Second World War. My mum was taken as forced labour by the Nazis from when she was 18 in 1941. To Germany. My father was conscripted into the Polish army and captured by the Germans near Lviv. They met in a DP camp in Germany, married in 46. My sister was born in 47. Because my mum was pregnant, we were going to go to Canada, but I kiboshed it. She was pregnant. And settled in England. I came around in 59. At the time they were in Manchester, but they were around the country. Still had to report weekly as an alien to the police. So they never took British citizenships. They travelled on travel documents. I didn't speak English until I was 5 years old when I went to school.
Okay, so for many people who don't have an understanding of sort of Ukrainian and Russian conflicts historically and current politics, what explains what Putin is doing right now? Because to the rest of the world, obviously, it looks absolutely insane. There can be no justification, of course, but what explains his mindset right now?
The guy's a raving lunatic. There's no other explanation. We are a thorn in the side of the Russians. Our nation existed before Moscow existed. We became a Christian country in 998. At that time, Moscow did not exist. It was swamplands with frogs croaking in it. Moscow itself, the word Moscow, cannot be translated. It means dirty water. And that's all it was. And they have tried to, until the 1762 with Catherine the First or the Second, they were called Muscovy. They stole from us their name, Rus, Russia. We were Kievan Rus. That's where they got Russia from. They don't even got that right. They are stealing our culture, our history to justify their existence. They are not even Slavic. They are Mongol, Finnish ancestry. We are Slavic. If you look even the names of the month, countries like Ukraine, Poland, Belarus, Serbia, everyone will use the Cyrillic alphabet. They all say same, it might be spelled differently. Russians use Januar, Rike Sichin for January. They're not pretending to be a European nation. They're not. You look at the crowns of the Tsars, the double-headed chicken that's on it. It's Arabic script because it's from Genghis Khan's Golden Horde.
What do you make of Putin's claim that he's addressing a far-right issue, Nazis, things like that in Ukraine?
Explain to me how the only European country who has a president with Jewish roots, a prime minister with Jewish roots, which were democratically elected, are Nazis.
That's somewhat of a contradiction, isn't it? Lastly, I just want to get your opinion on what you think of Ofcom's recent decision to take Russia Today off British airwaves.
What's taken so long?
Ukraine is a democratic country with a democratically elected president. Nobody really understands what Putin's aims are in Ukraine. He continues to tell us that he wants to go into Ukraine to denazify Ukraine. Ukraine has a Jewish president. Everybody can see that he has no real reason. He has made his own narrative. He wrote his own version of history back in the summer, claiming Ukraine has no right to exist. And this is Putin's objective. He only wants to destroy Ukraine and Ukrainian people. He is already starting to commit genocide in Ukraine again. In 1932-33, Stalin murdered millions of Ukrainians through mass starvation. Putin is doing the same. In Mariupol, people have nothing to eat. Humanitarian deliveries have been targeted by Russian soldiers. This is deliberate. He is trying to starve Ukraine once again. We cannot watch while genocide is committed in 2022. The world must stop Putin. President Zelensky has thanked the West for their help so far, for the weapons they've provided, for the ammunition, for the training before the war began. At the same time, President Zelensky said, we do not have enough. Ukraine alone is facing a world superpower. Ukraine needs more help. Ukraine needs more weapons. We need to close the skies, to stop the bombardment, the barbaric targeting of innocent civilians. The theatre targeted in Mariupol this week, it was written in the sand, clearly visible from satellites. They'd written the word children. That was clearly a mistake, because for Putin, that made it to target. He's done that on purpose. He's a mass murderer, deliberately targeted at Ukrainians. Stop Putin! Stop the war! Stop Putin! Stop the war! Stop Putin! Stop the war!
Hi Martin, thank you very much for speaking to me. I just wondered, what's your links to Ukraine?
So all my grandparents were born in Ukraine, and my wife's Ukrainian, so we go every year. I always consider myself a Ukrainian. We speak Ukrainian at home. This little boy can only speak Ukrainian.
So this is a deeply personal issue for you then, on many levels?
Definitely, yeah, it is.
Okay, could you perhaps, are you okay there, little fella? You okay?
Okay.
Maybe you could explain to people who are not very versed in the history of Russia and Ukraine conflict, what sort of explains what Putin is doing right now? Because to the rest of the world it makes no sense whatsoever.
I think if we look back to what happened in the summer, where Putin wrote an essay about history, his own version of history that is, where he described really that Ukraine has no right to exist. He claims that Ukraine isn't a real country. And really what Putin believes is that Ukraine belongs to Russia. And that's what is the real driving force behind this. The NATO narrative is one that he conveniently uses, but he has a desire to recreate the former Russian Empire, the Soviet Union as it was.
What sort of resolution do you see to this? I mean, to many it seems like Russia have bit off more than they can chew in many ways.
Indeed, so they're experiencing heavy losses. So it requires Putin to realise he can't win, because it does look like he can't win. But the real issue is how long does it take him to realise that before he agrees to pull out. I think there are discussions at the minute, but it appears what we're hearing is that the Russian demands are just not realistic.
How far have the sanctions gone in your view from the West? Could there be more?
Definitely there could be more. So the sanctions are good. They've had a real impact, but there are still more. There are still oligarchs who could be targeted. Some of them were targeted slowly, like Abramovich had tried to put Chelsea in a trust before because he knew that was coming. So they need to be quicker. But really, I think it's oil and gas embargoes are the real big step. While we keep buying Russian oil, we keep funding the war.
And lastly, what's your thoughts on Ofcom's recent decision to ban Russia Today from British Airwaves?
I asked a minister in 2014 to do that. So I've been not actively campaigning for Russia Today to be taken off the air for 8 years, but have held the opinion that they should not be on the air. They are broadcasting Russian propaganda. Putin doesn't allow Western media in Russia. He controls everything, and it would be wrong if we felt that we cannot broadcast anything in Russia, to tell the truth, that we would allow his lies and to be broadcast over here. So it's a well overdue decision.
Thank you very much for speaking to me. Stay safe. Cheers. Thank you very much for speaking to me. Perhaps you could just explain your links to Ukraine for me.
Yeah, I was born in Ukraine in 1995. Long story.
Wow.
But I was born in Kharkiv. It's one of the areas that's the most damaged at the moment. My dad is from Kherson, which is also an area that's quite heavily occupied by Russia at the moment. And then I moved to Kiev when I was quite young, so I lived in Kiev for quite some time before I moved to Switzerland, where I had the chance of growing up. Unfortunately, although I did move abroad, this really hurts our whole family, all of our friends. We still have a lot of friends back there, a lot of friends that didn't manage to escape and are currently being bombed. It's really hard. It's a really difficult situation, and like I said, although I did move abroad, it is really painful. It really affects us mentally and physically because these events are just horrific. No one should be going through these kind of things. No matter the country, no matter the religion, no matter the ethnicity, war is war, and it has to stop. People are dying for nothing. People are dying for someone else's weird political decisions, and it's just, heartbreaking.
Yeah, I can't imagine. And sort of talking about weird political decisions, people sort of like me who are not particularly well versed in like Ukrainian history and politics, what sort of explains Putin's mindset? I mean, to like the common person, it just looks insane.
He's insane.
Right.
He himself, many years, I can't remember, it was an interview with Putin, and he said if someone stays in power for more than 7 years, they're going to go insane. And he stayed in power for 20 years, so I genuinely believe he is insane.
Lastly, what do you think of Ofcom's decision to ban Russia Today in UK?
That's a good question. I would say I don't want to encourage hate towards anyone. I'm half Russian myself. I wouldn't encourage hate. I just think we need to educate people because still a lot of Russians here are supporting this. Just like literally 5 minutes ago, a girl came here, screamed, "I'm for Russia, I'm Russian, I'm from Russia, for Russia," and walked off. So yeah, people still need to be educated. I still think that there need to be sanctions. We need to act as much as we can. We need to, unfortunately, I do agree, we need to send some people back home if they're heavily supporting this kind of regime. I do think there should be consequences for people's actions. If people are here supporting Ukraine, donating, really showing their support, then I wouldn't want anything to happen to them. But if you're constantly coming here and screaming that you're supporting such horrible actions, I think there should be consequences.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to me. Stay safe as well.